I mean, it feels like everyone's just like taken off. Like everyone's like gone away for something. Doesn't it feel like that almost? It's only May 15th, but it for some reason it feels like people have already said, "Yeah, summertime. Summertime's here." I mean, it's where I am. It's warm, and I just know that it has that feeling like the dog days are coming. If you're a dog person, I guess that's a good thing. Yeah, got some reaction to the people or to the PETA podcast where I I talked about the idea of the abolition of pet ownership. Oh, some people. Not my pet. I love my pet. I know. Well, I mean, it's an interesting thing. I mean, number one, they shouldn't be pets, right? I mean, PETA's official stance is there are animal companions. They're part. They're members of the family. I know some people won't go that far, but that's the only way you can make so-called pet ownership ethical. That is, if you say, "Hey, we're not talking about pets. We're talking about members of the family." In fact, that's one of the big things about pet ownership or about having an animal companion. You learn if you need the lesson, you learn that lesson of empathy. Anyway, so today's lesson of empathy is like, oh, it's post Mother's Day. Now, you didn't forget, did you? Went to the grocery store on Mother's Day, like the day, and I could see all the guys who had forgotten buying cards, buying flowers on the day of. I mean, it's you got to put some thought into it. Like at least a day. But that was interesting to see that. But no, I hope you had a good Mother's Day. I wanted to talk about Mother's Day because the last time we did our show was on Friday before Mother's Day, and you're not really in the mood for Mother's Day on Friday. Not on Friday when the Warriors have to win on Friday night, and then they to come back on Saturday night, which of course they didn't. They didn't win on Friday night. It was kind of like a bummer weekend. If you're a Warrior fans, if you're a Warrior fan out there, and you know that it had to be maybe the most Asian American NBA or most watched by Asian American NBA playoff series to date because you're dealing with the two big Asian American bases, San Francisco and LA, right? Between those two bases, you had, I would say, probably 80 to 90% of Asian American basketball fans. I mean, I don't know, unless you're an Asian American basketball fan hanging out for the Knicks or the 76ers. So it was a bummer when the Warriors lost on Wednesday to LeBron and the Lakers, and then even a greater bummer that they weren't around on Sunday because that you felt the void that I don't know if Mother could fill that void. So, and on Friday, I was just my mind was just we got to bring the Warriors home. We got to make the Warriors win. And of course they lost. And so it was kind of like a not so great a weekend. Big void, but the void was filled by Mother. And I hope that it was a good Mother's Day for you. I wanted to take Monday today to talk about my mother because I don't think I remembered her enough. She passed away more than 20 years ago, and I was watching. All right, I admit I watch American Idol. All right, so what does that make me? An OG? I mean, that show's been around forever. It's kind of, it's a milestone landmark kind of show, right? because you see how talent develops the country. These amateurs coming from, well, they're not all amateurs, but if you've watched the show from day one, you see how things are different. I mean, right now, I think the odds-on favorite to win, to be the American Idol, is this guy from Hawaii, Tongi. And I think for an Asian American show like this one, welcome, by the way, Emil, Amok's Takeout, my takes on all things considerable. Sometimes we take the cold open a little too far. But yeah, welcome to the show. We talk about Asian American things, but you don't have to be an AAPI or an AAX, Asian American X, fill in your ethnicity. You can be an ALL, all the rest of you. You're all welcome. We're here Monday through Friday. Welcome to the program. So, Tongi is he's a Pacific Islander from Hawaii, odds-on favorite. I mean, he's this huge. I'm not trying to do any kind of fat shame. He's just a big guy, a mountain of a. He's a man, but he's like all of 19, young kid out of high school. And this is the thing that I noticed, that they're partial to young kids, not the 15 or 16-year-olds, but if you're 18 to 23, oh, that's a sweet spot for American Idol. If you're older, I mean, they had some 26, 27-year-olds. I mean, you can be, I think, under 30 and still qualify, but you're like out of it unless you can prove that you're so adept at TikTok and are so hip and are so inventive. You have no shot. It's all about the kids, 18 to 23, and that's where we are with the top three. It was tough last night because it was 5 and 2 who I thought should have been there. Right? I thought for sure Wayani from Harlem should have been in there. All right, the other guy, Zachariah, I didn't think he should have been there. But the final 3, it's going to be exciting. But I think everyone's looking at, Colin Stowe and Megan Danielle. They sort of had a nice duet a couple weeks ago. Colin Stowe, man, he's a good singer, country singer. Megan Danielle, same thing. But Tongi, 18-year-old Hawaiian, I think he's going to be, he could be it. They were dropping hints all over the show yesterday saying, I think you're going to be the next American Idol. Katy said, Katy Perry, in this incredible outfit. Could be. So I always look at American Idol as a kind of barometer for American diversity and taste. And usually there are some Asian Americans, who make it to maybe the top 10. But this year, man, I think Tongi has a huge shot. The big guy in his Hawaiian shirt, singing that kind of, slack key favorites. I think that would be great if he wins in May, right? Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Let's see. Katy Perry said, I know you're, I am, but when I see your name, I see I am the next American Idol. So, there's some pull within the show, but it's all about votes. I think that's why I like to watch American Idol, because it has this voting system. You can vote 10 times, vote to your heart's content to a limit. So it's a little bit of democracy involved. And then, for a while, let's say over the course of the years, there's always been this conspiracy theory that some people were trying to game the voting system so that so that some people would vote intentionally for the worst person to try to embarrass the show. But I don't know. It always happens, generally speaking, that the best person wins. I think we have the top three close enough. Although, like I said, Wayani from Harlem, great singer, and I think she had a kind of glam, sexy thing going on that should have said, "Hey, yeah, this woman is idol worthy," but for some reason, she's going to have to make her career as other high-ranking non-winners who've gone on to great success. I don't think Jennifer Hudson won, but they're Jennifer Hudson, one of the greatest out of this show. So anyway, this could be the year for Tongi, 18, for an Asian American Native Hawaiian, and so that's what I did during Mother's Day. I mean, we end up watching the early version because it gets fed into the West Coast live so we could vote, right? If you don't want to vote, you can watch it at 8 o'clock on repeat when it actually reruns on the network. But so I used my votes to vote in Tongi. Glad for that. And that would be something. When you think American Idol, do you automatically think of a slightly large Hawaiian man? In 2023, good. So the top three, you got Colin Stowe, who wears a cowboy hat. You got Megan Danielle, who, she's young and, she's not all glammed up, but great voice. I'm just saying that, we're talking about show business. And then you got the guy who is just pure talent, who looks like the heavy favorite to win. And let's see if America will vote him in. Tongi from Hawaii. I mean, that's going to be a test. When you put these three up to a vote in America, that kind of tells you something about reaction to Asian American talent. Maybe it'll tell you something about how racist or non-racist America is. Maybe. Anyway, that's one of the interesting things about this year's American Idol. Okay, so I admit, I watched it Mother's Day night, and I thought, I'm not paying enough. I didn't say enough about my mom, who passed away 20 years ago, and I was wondering, God, and maybe this is one of the problems with Mother's Day. It just sometimes seems too commercial. Like, oh, you got to get a card, you got to get, and it almost seems like a made-up holiday. And then did a little research, and it turns out actually the origins of Mother's Day was in protest to the war. It was to show a kind of, it was all about peace and anti-war, and it was mothers coming together in protest to world events. It was not buy a card for your mom day. It was not buy flowers for mom. It actually was political in nature. And then it kind of like lost favor, went in and out of favor. And now it's just, traditionally, oh, here it is, Mother's Day in May. You celebrate that, and you celebrate Father's Day, and now they got days for every relative. You got Grandparents' Day. I don't know if they have an aunt or uncle day, but they probably do. I don't know. So it's degenerated somewhat, but the origins were real. The origins were not. It's not a made up day. It's not like a commercial day. And so, of course, being the son of an immigrant, special when you think about your mom. That's why I felt bad when I didn't really think about her much at all on Sunday. I mean, she's been gone 20 some years. But she really is responsible, good or bad, or good and bad, for what happened to me. I mean, she kind of pushed me to, to a point, because when your parents are older than you, I mean, so much older, and limited in their way of dealing with society, so that you are the person who deals with, things like whether or not they apply for their SSI or, citizenship or whatever. It's like, it's almost like you become your own parent, or you become the parent. I mean, that's the case with a lot of people who are the so-called 1.5s, right? They come as the young kids of immigrants, and then they know English better than the immigrant, and they end up being, in this strange way, the semi-head of household. I mean, that's the way it is in some cases now with some families. Not in mine. I mean, I was still the kid. I was still the kid. But I knew more. I knew more than I should have. I wasn't grateful enough to my mom and my dad. And my dad was, my dad was older. My dad was older than me. And so that's never a good thing, because, your dad's old. Although, who did I see had a baby, fathered a baby recently? Someone in there like 79. Some pop star, sort of like, it's kind of like Alec Baldwin. In the old days, if you were 50 years older than your son or your children, that was old. Now, if you're 79, what does that mean? That means that you probably have a little more money. You can afford to wait to have a family or to have a child. Although, I can't imagine you 79 years older than your infant son or daughter. And so when they're 10 years old, you're 89. You're going to ask them not to fetch your slippers, but to maybe help you change your diaper or something. I mean, I don't know. Don't know about that. But I Mick Jagger, right? He's also in his 70 years older than his youngest. Anyway, I had older parents, and I thought they were old in just being 50 years older than me. And it's much worse now. But I've been thinking about my mom. I don't usually think about her that much. I mean, in terms of like she was my mom. But I wrote an essay back in 1996 in May, and it had to do with my mom becoming a citizen. Because my mom, she wasn't a war bride, what they call the Filipino war bride types, which was a woman in the Manila who met someone in the army, Filipino or otherwise, who then went back and brought her back as a bride, and they were called war brides. Now, my mom was in Manila during World War II, but she hid underneath a sewing machine to avoid being found. She worked in a seamstress shop, and she always hid to avoid being found by Japanese who would come and like round up all the young women and turn them into comfort women. So my mom was in World War II. She fought her war, and she survived. What happened was, with my mom, a patron, a Spanish woman who came to the dress shop, she got to know my mom and when the Spanish woman was going to America, going back to Spain via America, via the U.S., she offered my mom the trip of a lifetime, which was, come with me. I'll drop you off in San Francisco. I'll go on to Spain. You can live your life and you can get out of this hellhole known as the Philippines. And it was the opportunity of a lifetime for my mother. So my mom was here after the war in the 1950s. She was single, hung out with other Filipino women who were brought here as war brides or in however they got here, but they formed a community of women. My mother only called her my comadres. And the comadres would hang out. They would cook together, go to have parties together, maybe meet a young Filipino man, although that was not like the number one thing. That they came together as community. But one day, one of my comadre aunts went shopping. She had an infant son, and she had too many groceries to carry, and there was this Filipino man who was witnessing her struggle, and he offered to help. Very chivalrous, of course, Filipino. Helped bring the groceries of my comadre aunt back to her house. She invited this man into this community where he meets the woman who would be my mother. And the man, my father, was like in hog heaven. Is like, here, he meets this woman, whirlwind courtship. I mean, first of all, it was hard to meet women. He came to America in 1928, hadn't found one to settle down with. Here it is in the 50s, which is, imagine that, 50s. Like 22 years, almost a generation goes by. And he's a bachelor. He finds my mother. They get married. They have me. That's your holiday. But then, my dad becomes a citizen. My mom maintains her green card status and is a resident alien all throughout my life. My mom was never a citizen until this one day in the 1990s. I mean, being a green card holder was just fine. And then she decided to become a citizen. So this is an essay I wrote. It's in my book, Amok, A-M-O-K. Essays from an Asian American perspective. I call it Mom's Sunday. When my favorite resident alien turned citizen. We were eating ice cream at Blum's, the now defunct San Francisco shrine to the sweet tooth. Just me and my mom, or in homeboy speak, using the pop grammar of endearment, me and my moms. There was only one of her, but she was definitely in possession of something. Citizenship. That's why we were celebrating with traditional American food of the high-cal, high-fat nature. Forget apple pie. This was an ice cream sundae to end all ice cream sundaes. Double scooped, a massive squiggle of whipped cream, chocolate syrup with a cherry on top. Mom was an American at last. I'll never forget that scene. It's my Norman Rockwell moment. That was more than 10 years ago, which would be 1986, according to when I wrote this essay. More than 10 years ago, significant because Mom was in her 70s, a widow, and a resident alien. As a kid, I always thought that was funny because it reminded me of my then favorite TV show, My Favorite Martian. Whenever I saw that, I thought of Mom, my favorite resident alien. She wasn't Donna Reed exactly, or Lucy. She was more Ray Walston. Aliens had special status back then when green cards were really green. They could do just about anything citizens could do, anything we needed to do, shop, take the bus, and they won't arrest me, she'd say. And we'd laugh, except during those times when she didn't let me have my way and I wished they'd knock on our door and send her back. Why shouldn't I stay up late? I may have been 7 at the time, but at least I was a citizen, more than she was. I always lost those power plays. Mom's domain was the home, and it trumped democracy. I always thought she was just fine as your common, everyday garden variety green card holder. Everyone was nice to her. No one looked down on her. No one made fun of her, except for my dad. My dad would joke using his best Filipino accent that Mom wasn't a citizen. He was a citizen. He came from the Philippines in the 1920s, and he wore his citizenship like a set of suspenders, especially on election day. He'd go out and vote the way the Cooks Union told him to, and Mom just figured it was the family vote. She stayed at home and took care of me and my sister. That's what she was used to. Being an alien was all right by her. So you can imagine my surprise when she declared to my sister and me that she was taking her oath. I'm taking my oath. She would renounce her place of birth, the Philippines, and finally accept America as her home. Mom, you've been an alien almost 40 years, I said. Yeah, she said. And Reagan's been president for 3. My father had died just as Reagan took office. It left my mom on a widow's pension, Social Security. My mom was hardly one of Reagan's welfare queens. She lived frugally and qualified for the free food programs that provided chunks of cheese the size of ottomans. No one could eat cheese fast enough. Clearly, the good times were over. Reagan cut taxes, stripped spending, and installed his trickle-down theories. But Mom knew nothing would trickle down to her. Citizenship was the only way to fight against any further erosion. I have to vote now, she told me. It turned out, after all these years, my mom had Susan B. Anthony's spirit after all. The only thing to trickle down to Mom was a politicized anger and a wicked sense for John Hinckley Jr. as hero jokes. Nothing like a John Hinckley Jr. joke to make you appreciate the First Amendment. As we approach Mother's Day, I've got to hand it to my mom. She had the vision. She knew something was happening back then. She knew better than the McLaughlin Group. There was trouble ahead. She took action. She now collects her Social Security with pride in the name of FDR, my father, and all that's good about America. It's barely enough to get by. Today, I'm seeing my mom's motivation replicated en masse by the hundreds who are rushing to become citizens. I walked down to the INS offices in San Francisco and couldn't believe the busloads of people lined up just to get through the revolving glass door before it shuts. Since my mom became an American, she's slowed down considerably. So has Reagan, but Congress hasn't. Last week's Senate vote on welfare cuts for non-citizens was a milestone in immigrant history. It marked the formalization of this new era of scapegoating, one that we've come to expect over the last 2 years. The bill not only targets illegal immigrants, but also targets legal immigrants, green card holders, resident aliens, people who receive public assistance. few will speak out for illegal immigrants these days. Illegal is illegal, right? But how moral is taking away benefits from legal residents of this country who are needy for reasons of age or disability? I'd hate to think about my mother's medical bills these last few years if she were not eligible for all the state and federal aid. Thank God my mom's a citizen. She can get sick all she wants. She might even get sick from this legislation. These mean-spirited cutbacks are driven by the idea that legal immigrants cost more in government benefits than they pay in taxes. But keep in mind, only about 5% of working-age legal immigrants receive public assistance. Immigrants aren't bankrupting our democracy, our country. Legislators are bankrupt ethically to deny aid to legal residents, specifically resident aliens. America has always been about we the people, not we the citizens. My mom knows that. She read it in the Constitution. That was May 10th, 1996, one of my columns from Asian Week. It's in my book, Amok, Essays from an Asian American Perspective. I read that because that's my mom. My mom, that was my mom, the moment for my mom and I. At the time, I was working at KRON when it was an NBC affiliate. I took some time off to have that ice cream sundae at Blum's. We celebrated her being an American. And really, it was like one of the happiest moments that we really spent with each other. Probably the happiest, though, was when I moved to Washington, D.C., and I told her that Thurgood Marshall was married to a Filipino woman, and his kids were half Filipino, and she wanted to go to the Supreme Court and have her picture taken at the Supreme Court steps. She stayed with us in Washington for a good long, like a month. She thought she couldn't fly an airplane, get on the airplane. She thought she was too old and sickly. We insisted she go on that airplane, and she made it there, and she got to the Supreme Court steps, and we took that picture of her and her cane. My mom. That's Mother's Day. I got other stories about my mom I tell in my one-man show, Emil, Amok. Always in constant stage of revision. But the next time I do it live will be in August in San Francisco at the San Francisco Fringe Festival. So try to catch it. I think August 10th through 18th. I'm scheduled. The exact lineup isn't out yet, but it's mid-August. I think the 12th through 18th. Emil Amok, Lost NPR host. Check it out. Coming to the SF Fringe. I just had a version of it at the Frigid Fringe in New York. And in fact, I'm going back to New York in August to do that play I was in, the Ishmael Reed play, The Conductor. But I don't know if I'm going to have an opportunity to do my one-man show. I hope to have at least one or two performances somewhere in New York. So if you're listening, check it out here. Or check out the details on amok.com or here on the, what is this? It's not exactly a podcast because they don't put it on the regular podcast. This is sort of like Emil Amok's Takeout, the Secret Podcast, which you can see live Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific, or you can see on my website at amok.com. All right, I had a couple more things to talk about. Oh, I told you how disappointed I was about the Dubs, the Warriors. I'm disappointed about the Warriors, but I'm getting over it because it's good that your favorite team loses because look, they weren't supposed to win. They were a terrible team, and everything you knew was going to go was going to go downhill after the opening bit in the beginning of the season when Draymond Green Jordan Poole. And now, there's some stories circulating that the real reason why Draymond Green punched Jordan Poole is because Jordan Poole didn't show respect to the Warriors coach, Steve Kerr, or to the didn't have enough respect for the culture of being a champion. He was just young and individualistic and disrespectful, and Draymond punched him. And when I first heard this, I wanted to punch Draymond because I value Jordan Poole. But after Jordan Poole's playoff performance, I can see Draymond's point. Of course, Draymond's trying to make himself look good. I don't know what's going to happen. I hope they keep Poole, although a lot of people want to trade him. They're going to have to blow up everyone or everything but the core group of Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson still is formidable, although wasn't great in the playoffs. But those three, and then with the remaining talent unnamed, trade them off. They're all pieces to get bigger and better players. And that gives the Warriors maybe 2 more years in which to maximize the greatness of Stephen Curry. Because he's 35. He might have 2, maybe 3 more years. LeBron James is 38. So figure maybe Stephen Curry has 3 years. And then if that's the window, you get guys who can win now within that 3-year period. And, Stephen Curry should have 2 more championships right now. At least 2 more, but circumstances, right? The past. And he could have possibly have won this year. But now they know what they have to do if they want to win at least 2 more times. And they can. They can do that. Which means he can retire winning 6 championships. I'm a Curry fan. I'll tell you, though, and Warrior fans know this, that when Curry came in, it was choose between Stephen Curry and Monte Ellis. And Monte Ellis was beloved for a while until he got into a scooter accident, and then there went Monte Ellis. Now the Warriors. It's tough to have favorite teams, But like I said, when they lost Friday and they weren't able to play Mother's Day, big void on Mother's Day in the Guillermo household, I'll tell you. Anyway, all right, so he talked about Mom, talked about Tongi, talked about the Dubs. The news of the day, this is the big story of the day. There's a guy who went into a Virginia congressman's office and with a metal baseball bat, started attacking people. And he has now been arrested. Let's see what the latest is here. But he's now been arrested. And it was a Vietnamese guy, which is not a good thing. First of all, I think he was a 49-year-old Vietnamese guy, at least as reported by CNN. Let's see, they don't have it up top here in the New York Times. Staff members attacked with bat at Congressman's Virginia district office. 2 people hospitalized after the attack at the Fairfax office of Representative Jerry Connolly, a Democrat. A man was in custody, police said. Xuan Ka Tran Pham, 49, Fairfax, facing charges for 1 count of felony aggravated malicious wounding and 1 count of malicious wounding, according to the Fairfax City Police Department, held without bond. So, of course, in a general sense, people are going to look at this and say, look at the surge of political violence. And you would have to conclude, yeah, it has to be. Democrat office, Xuan Ca Tran Pham, Vietnamese sounding name. Most of the Vietnamese are Republican in that area. One wonders what could have motivated him. They haven't identified a motive. But, it's... See, last year, let's see, the Times is reporting, last year, Mr. Pham filed a federal lawsuit in Virginia against the CIA, alleging that the agency had imprisoned him for decades in a lower perspective based on physics called the book world, and demanding $29 million. What? Okay, this story's getting weird. The suit, which was handwritten, claimed the agency was brutally torturing him with a degenerative disability from the 4th dimension. Okay, does it sound like we're dealing with someone who's well here? We're dealing with someone who may need some kind of mental health. It may have a mental health issue. I'll tell you, when I read that, it saddens me because, number one, how much of this is just this guy Pham, naturally? How much is it Pham because of his circumstances? He's not native to the United States. He was an immigrant. As a Vietnamese person, he probably immigrated here under perhaps traumatic circumstances, more traumatic than not. And unless he was even a late arriving person. Don't know the circumstances, but in some ways you'd have to expect that, when people talk about Asian American mental health, you've got to consider how our immigration status and how we came here, how that contributes to some of the mental issues that we may have. When I was just reading this now. Guy goes in with a bat, filed a lawsuit last year against the CIA, alleging that the agency had imprisoned him for decades in a, quote, lower perspective based on physics called the book world, and demanded $29 million. Now, this isn't science fiction. It's real. He wrote it. The circumstances of being an immigrant in America, I don't know. He says, in this suit, which was handwritten, claimed the agency was brutally torturing him with a, quote, degenerative disability from the 4th dimension. Well, thoughts and prayers to Xuan Ca Tran Pham, 49 of Fairfax, who's in custody without bond. Fortunately, he's accused of allegedly going in with a baseball bat into Congressman Gerald Connolly's office in Fairfax. People who were injured are being treated. Struck 2 staff members in the upper body. So let's hope that they're well, non-life threatening. At least it was a bat. It could have been much worse if it were some kind of semi-automatic weapon. And we already have a mass shooting that's being reported in Farmington, New Mexico. I mean, these are so common now that every now and then it's good to see someone with a bat, only to remind us that, the violence is always there. And sometimes, boy, how fortunate those people are that this guy didn't have access to weapons. I mean, serious weapons. Because that would have been a tragedy. So, I mean, some people would say, Emil, you call yourself Amok, and here's a guy clearly who went, I don't know if it's clearly that he went amok, but he's got some kind of mental issue. He was in this angered state and started striking two staff members. Fortunately, non-life threatening. I'll tell you, I had anger in my earlier days in my life, but nothing like that. And amok has only been a metaphor. But one thing that has helped me just in the last 3 to 5 years has been meditation. So many times, people look at meditation like it's some kind of like strange. It's not, it's just being aware of your situation, thinking about it. Sometimes thinking hurts your head to think about it. Sometimes writing out what you're feeling, what your fears and anxieties are, what you're angry at. Sometimes it's worth writing down just to get it out. And then to meditate. And then sometimes just the act of doing that helps you come to terms with where you are, what you really have to do now. It unclutters your mind. It gets you to the point of what you need to do now. So many people have different techniques. Like I told you about the spitting technique of Lloyda Lewis's, her mother-in-law said, you feel angry, want to yell at my son? Take the words and thoughts that you have, go to the bathroom, go to the toilet, and spit it out. Spit it out and flush. Gone. And sometimes the act of doing that clears the mind and allows you to be more in the present so that you can deal with whatever it is that's bothering you. But it's usually some form of getting it out, either expressing it, spitting it out in a toilet like Lloyda Lewis's mother-in-law says, or it's writing it out, getting it out, and then tearing it up. You don't want anyone to see it. It's just it's the act of getting it out of you. And then as you do that, then you meditate, and then you rest and you think and you become presently aware. You calm down. It could help. At no point is there an option to retrieve a weapon or something. But it's always about trying to understand where you are and being in the moment so that you don't do something you might regret. All right. One thing, maybe I'll mention this tomorrow, talk about this tomorrow. In my columns, I talk about, on the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog, I talk about Biden the last couple of times, talking about Biden, his age, and then I talked about Trump, he's the front runner for the Republicans. I mean, he's really talking about starting a new, almost his new version of Yellow Peril, which is, hey, the Chinese are coming. The Chinese are coming. And, you know, you might be Filipino or Korean and Vietnamese. And you say, yeah, Chinese, that's who they are. That's not who I am. Yeah, but the Pew Research Center did a poll, and 60% of Asian American adults say, yeah, you know, when people say Asian, when I walk down the street and people say, oh, there's an Asian, they mean all of us. They don't distinguish between ethnicities. They don't say, oh, don't bother him, he's Chinese. They say, oh, he's Asian. Seen one, seen them all. That's a bad thing. So when Donald Trump says Joe Biden has boxes in Chinatown, he's just practicing his Yellow Peril rhetoric, because what he's saying is, oh yeah, Joe Biden connected to the enemy is China, boxes in Chinatown. Oh, by the way, Joe Biden has a son, Hunter Biden, and Hunter Biden is dealing with the Chinese, our enemy. Oh my God, what kind of family is this? What kind of non-patriotic people are we considering to be the first family of the United States? See how the rhetoric goes? That's how the rhetoric goes. I'm telling you, it's not good. So a lot of people are speculating about, oh, we need a plan B. Plan B is not Joe Biden. Oh, he's plan A. We need a plan B. Plan B is not Kamala Harris. What? Is plan B Buttigieg? No, we need a plan B. Is a plan B Michelle Obama? So we'll talk about that tomorrow. Because it could be. I don't know. Michelle Obama at that last convention, man, she was good. She was good in the last Democratic convention. But she's been laying low, you know, and I don't know if she would want to be. Well, look, no one who has the opportunity to be president would pass it up, right? Right? I don't think so. I don't think so. But maybe. I mean, they had their fill. The Obamas had two terms. They want another 8. Kids are gone. Maybe grandkids. I don't know. But, I mean, there's talk about that because a lot of people still aren't happy with Joe Biden. Although I think we can live with him. I think. Okay, that's it for today's show. Back again tomorrow. We're here Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific because I just feel like talking to you. Emil Guillermo's secret podcast. Emil amongst Takeout, my takes on all things considerable. The micro talk show of the AAPI and the AAXs and the ALLs, all the rest of you, you know. We ask the question, WDAAAT, what does an Asian American think? Because no one ever asks, because, you know, no one does. I mean, it's now you say, oh, that's what an Asian American thinks. That's what he thinks. Trying to see if I saw something this. Oh, I saw Hannah Gadsby on Netflix, her new show. She got married, and so she's talking about it. Not as good as the first, not as good as Daniel. Amusing. I mean, look, if you like comics, some of it is, they don't have to be funny, you just like them, right? Just like this show is not a show of punchlines. This show is just me talking. And if you like to listen to this show, it's because you like me. Or maybe a little bit. But, so, listen, I saw that. What else did I see? Did I see something else? Nothing I want to admit to. Okay, all right. Yeah. Oh, the Giants are exciting again. They got this guy, Casey Schmidt. Or Schmidt? Yeah, Schmidt. From San Diego. Could be good. Guy's on a hot streak. Got a hitting streak going. 3 games, I think 4 games. It'd be now. See, this is the thing about teams that aren't championship caliber. Yeah, they have a young player they find who is like magic, is like so good, but they don't discover that until he plays a lot. And so they got this guy, Casey Schmidt. He's a little older. They had to bring him up because shortstop Brandon Crawford's hurt. The guy is, as they say, lights out, hitting wise, even fielding wise. So, and that gives hope. I mean, as a fan, I don't care if they don't have championship caliber players. I want players who try hard, and they're going to want to win all the time. And if they win all the time, they're going to be champions. They're going to be winners. That's the secret. I mean, the San Francisco Giants in 28 and 29, they weren't good. They won in 2010, but they were entertaining because they wanted to win. And you could tell. And the Warriors in basketball have to be that kind of team. They have talent. They didn't play their young guys, and that's sort of counterproductive, because if you don't let the young guys play, they don't develop. And so now you have Jonathan Kuminga, who's a great young player, and Moses Moody, great young player. But here's the thing. They're like 20, 21. They're young guys. You can't put a young, dumb guy against really superstar level, champion level 30, 31, 32-year-old players. And then they'll get their pockets picked. They'll get cramped. And that's why the Warriors didn't play Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody, because they had these young guys up against 38-year-old LeBron James. Who do you think is going to win that one? Older is better. Older is better. And yet somehow we are blinded to that fact because we live in a youth culture where we think, oh, young people, they know everything. Yeah, TikTok, yeah. So you see all the old guys trying to do some kind of TikTok dance because that's cool. No. Older is better. We've lost our way. I mean, you see it in the NBA. Like I said, the young guys couldn't play because the young guys would be taken advantage of. And that's what we have to keep in mind before we sell out to youth culture and say, yeah, whatever you want, youth, it's all youth. Because older people, I'm talking, well, AARP is 50 plus. A lot of people think if you're 50 plus, you're over the hill. I don't think you're over the hill at least until 85. Am I being too liberal? No, I mean, you still got it. Look at Martha Stewart. She's in her 80s. She's like taking off her clothes. She forgot to take most of her clothes off because she's in her 80s. She's going to be in the swimsuit edition of Sports Illustrated. Hooray for her. I've never met Martha Stewart. I only met her in an airport. It was clear that was Martha Stewart, and she was with this really, I hope it was like her valet or something, because it was this old guy who, like, what are you doing with Martha Stewart? She looks, for an older woman, she looks really, if she's not totally hot, she's at least lukewarm beautiful, which is hot for an 80-year-old, right? I mean, I'm not leering after her. I'm just saying that she made the announcement today. She's going to be posing, or she going to be a cover girl for Sports Illustrated. That's great. Great for old people. Older people. Old people sounds like a pejorative, but it's older people. That's non-pejorative. We're taking over. Taking over. All right, here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific. I said earlier that I don't go amok these days. I used to go amok far more, but meditation has saved me. I mean, that's the truth. Meditation has saved me, he says, shaking his head. Really. And a little self-love, a little of the metta, self-love, loving kindness meditation. Practice it often. Take some time. Self-care. You say simple phrases like this and it helps. I'll demonstrate. You say, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. 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 That's the goal. Ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal Kita. Hey, look that up. It's a nice thing. Look that up. It's nice. Mahal Kita. Yeah.